Welcome back to the 2014 World Series of Poker main event final table here at the Rio All-Suite Hotel and Casino. The big hand against Mark Newhouse vaulted Will Tonking to the top of the leaderboard. He started here in 7th place, and I mean, he's got a huge chip lead now. So what would you like to see from him going forward, Dan?
Well, I mean, he's in a great position. If you look at where he's sitting at the table, he's got position on the chip leaders, and there's 4 guys behind him that are pretty much handcuffed. So he can continue to do what he's doing. I thought he made a really great call, a gutsy call against Mark Newhouse, going with his read. And if he continues to do that, he's got a real chance to win.
The thing I would say is, I talked about it earlier in this segment, he has great patience. His patience allowed him to pick up some big hands, pick off a great bluff when he called Newhouse with the queens, and put him in this great position. If he wants to win the tournament, he's going to have to step it up, because patience only takes you so far. You're going to need some white magic if you want to win this tournament.
Okay, we need some white magic. That feels very promotional for your white magic brand.
Reading ability I'm talking about. You're going to have to make some great reads. You're going to have to push the envelope a little bit if you want to win.
Okay, white magic TM. We're going to go to another promotional kind of arena here. Critique the tweet, in fact. Let's take another look at one of Phil Hellmuth's tweets.
Pick, I'm rapping on the mic with Roenick, Jimbo Sweetness, Phil Hellmuth, Jada Killer 2, Richard Roper. You know, I would say that you are clearly one of the best name droppers in the world, but when it comes to rap, the last time I heard him rap, it was the old rolling down the street, talking about, it's more like Frank Sinatra meets rap. It's awful. You're the worst. You got to retire before it gets really stupid.
Come on, I tweeted this out on Thursday night in Chicago. JB Pritz for Ken Griffin. We have this great charity poker tournament. We raised $1.3 million for teaching tolerance, and it was great to have Jeremy Roenick there.
Okay.
Jennifer Tilly was there, and Jeremy is the best celebrity guest I've ever had for rapping. He knows every word from every 80s song, and you give him the mic and he's awesome, and I rap right with him. So bring it, Daniel.
All right.
All right, maybe I'll get you guys rapping a little later. I won't. I really won't. When we come back, Lon, Norman, and Antonio return with more of the 2014 World Series of Poker main event final table. 8 players remain. Everyone is guaranteed a huge payday, but someone will win $10 million.
Back to the 2014 World Series of Poker main event final table telecast presented by Gentleman Jack. Our first and only knockout of the night was Mark Newhouse. Done in by Will Tonking, propelling Tonking into the chip lead. So we remain 8-handed inside the Penn & Teller Theater at the Rio All-Suite Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. I'm Lon McCarron with Norman Chad, Antonio Esfandiari. And with over a quarter of the chips in play, Will Tonking has been the man of the night. The knockout of Newhouse, taking him into the chip lead. And he is the one in line right now for the $10 million first place prize, or at least the leader in that race for it. Newhouse eliminated, as you've been watching, in 9th place back-to-back years. And so far, Norman, a very interesting final table. A lot to talk about. Some lulls here and there, but that's poker.
Yeah, the biggest thing remains Mark Newhouse's improbable 9th place finish for the 2nd straight year. That's something that'll stay with him for a long time. And the impressive play from the people actually who are still here. We haven't seen any serious missteps. Will Tonking has played very well. Van Hoof with the chip lead has played very well. He's now in 2nd. Dan Sindelar has played very well. And the short stacks have not gotten out of line. It's actually been played pretty tight, pretty snug, but no big missteps.
Antonio, do you expect anything different now as the blinds are up? The blinds are going to be up, I believe, to 300, 600,000, a 75K ante. And just going to force play a little more.
Absolutely. I mean, you have, a couple stacks with less than 20 bigs and a couple of monster stacks. So, this is kind of the turning point of the tournament where you're going to see things loosen up a lot more than we did in the last couple levels. I mean, even in the last level, we saw it, go up a couple of notches. But I think in this level, it's going to go up even more.
So a lot of money in the pot just before they deal the cards. Van Hoof with a raise with a suited jack to $1.4 million. And now these guys, the shorter stacks, Politano, Pappas, Jacobson, have to be very selective. And on one hand, on the other hand, they can't be as selective because it's going to keep melting away their chip stack every time they fold.
It's it's pretty expensive per round. So, and every 8 hands is 1 round. You can't just sit there and fold.
He does all right. Pappas in the big blind makes the call. for 300,000 more. 10-9 against Jack 6. One spade in there, a couple of deuces, 2 hearts, so a flush draw for Von Hoof. Pappas checks. It's been his world lately. He'll get involved in a pot and just totally whiff on the flop. He checks, the other guy bets, and he's forced to fold. And that's how you lose chips very quickly in this game.
Very quickly, and that's probably what's going to happen here. I mean, Pappas isn't really going to get too out of line, out of position with nothing here. So,
check, check.
Ooh.
So how about that?
This changes things.
Couple of spades, couple of hearts.
I mean, I'm surprised to see a check back from Van Hoof here on the flop, given all the money that's out there. I like taking the free card. I do that a lot of times in a cash game. But here in this tournament, the way that Pappas is playing, given that I have Jack high in case a non-heart comes on the turn, I like betting the flop and just trying to win the pot right there.
So into 3.7 million. Billy Pappas puts out a bet
1.575
of just over 1.5 million.
Take that
So
back.
just shy.
1.825.
All right, 1.8. So just shy of half the pot.
Pappas with not a lot of margin for error. Would love to see Van Hoof just lay it down right here.
Which is not going to happen because he's got a flush draw and he's in position. So,
and he's got that hair too.
I mean, don't forget about the hair.
Yeah.
Imagine his yearly gel cost. That's got to go.
All in.
There you go. He's going to put Billy Pappas to the test as he raises Pappas all in.
I'm surprised Billy hasn't folded yet.
I mean, this is the Hollywood going into play. You know, he's never going to call. He does have a flush draw and 2 overcards, but the way the hand played down, it almost looks like Van Hoof could have aces here, the way he played it. So this is just a little extra Hollywood.
And that's
Cards will be on their way, and that's that.
Big stack pushing on the small stack. And that's how the game is played. And Billy Pappas got involved as he has to get involved. And more often than not, you're going to come up short, even though he had the draw. And he did not want to put his tournament life on the line with a draw.
All right, guys, it's 75
and that
now.
smile from Von Hoof means I'm stacking chips once again.
75.
Billy Pappas now the short stack, and he's down under 15 of big blinds.
So almost 50 million for Yorit, and Will Talking, the chip leader, sitting with almost 55 million. So a lot of folks out there very interested in the goings on here at the Penn and Teller Theater. A lot of people tweeting, and they are coming in. And the one tweet about Von Hoof's hair, I'm going to not take credit for. That's somebody tweeted me about his hair. You see JRB out there. Mad respect for Mark Newhouse. Greg Merson, former champion, says, I love the heart that Newhouse showed during his run. Sometimes, more often than not, it does not work out. J.C. Tran, former November Niner. This is probably a good example of how the long break can hurt. You lose momentum and you're back out of the zone. Getting in the zone is tough at the World Series of Poker.
And JC might be talking about himself as well from last year.
JC came in as one of the favorites with the stack that he had, and an early exit was just a sign that, you know, you never know what's going to happen in the game. You can bring the skills.
I have 8.625.
Cards just don't fall your way sometimes.
When does I do the same?
You started with 8.6, right? You should have 8.6 minus 575. Yeah. You should have 8.
There is our chip leader, Will Talking.
Raised to 1.35.
I think that's what he has. 8,025,000. It's got to be what he has.
I have 8,625.
Hope you're enjoying our coverage of the World Series of Poker final table coming your way on just a 30-minute delay from the Penn and Teller Theater at the Rio in Las Vegas. Cards face up when a player enters the pot. As you see, Will Talking, the chip leader with Jack 10, raised it up to over 1.3 million. There is one of the short stacks, Martin Jacobson. I'm Lon McCarron with Norman Chad and Antonio Esfandiari. Our break coverage being brought to you by Karis Scott, Daniel Negreanu, and Phil Hellmuth.
It's rare that Jacobson takes this long and folds.
He says all in. And he is going to have to deal with the chip leader, Jacobson, as you see now, ace-jack suited.
Luckily for him, there won't be much to deal with. So unless somebody wakes up with a hand behind him, he's just going to win the spot. Look, you know, Jacobson has picked up some hands in the right spots where somebody's opened and he's been able to come over the top, and no one has ever had a hand to really call him, except for Tonking, which laid down sixes earlier. That was the only spot that was even close.
And look what it does for a small chip stack.
I mean, yeah, boom, all of a sudden he's up to 16 million.
He started the hand with almost 15 million, so profit on the evening so far for Jacobson, and considering what's been happening with him all night long, that is a huge bonus for him to finally be in the black.
Yeah. You need Miami? Yes. Okay.
So we're still 8-handed, and the payout for 8th is a total of $947,000. The top 7 finishers will earn over $1 million, with the top prize worth a cool $10 million. World Series of Poker main event championship bracelet worth over $500,000, and you earn the respect of every poker player in the world to have outlasted almost 7,000 players in this tournament. It is an amazing tournament. It's the one everyone puts on their calendar each year. If at all possible, they are in Las Vegas for this main event.
And truly the World Series of Poker. We still have 6 nations represented among the 8 final players. You know, I like to give the World Series of Baseball grief. That's just the championship of essentially American baseball plus Toronto. This is the World Series of Poker. It's a series of events that the whole world plays, and this is the main event, and we get an international crowd, and chances are we're going to have an international champion.
Van Hoof with a walk. You don't see that every day. But look, he is playing very strong poker, and I think that some of the players are afraid of him. You know, the way he's been playing and the moves they find out that he's made. They don't really want to play pot with him.
So there you see the 2 top stacks, more than half the chips in play, 200 million and a few more in play. And Van Hoof had the most chips coming in, 9-handed, and he's not far off the chip lead held by that man Will Tonking right now.
That was a fantastic close-up of his hair. I mean, did you see how perfectly precise every single little, you know, it was fantastic. Wish I had hair like that.
You have to appreciate the whole game, don't you? Prize pool of the main event. You talked about the World Series and how big it really is. Prize pool at the main event was almost $63 million, and $27.5 million of that still to be handed out amongst these 8 players. Norway folds. Netherlands wants to play. Italy next to act. Van Hoof with ace-5 off.
Spain, not Italy.
I'm sorry, you're right, Spain.
Check.
Thank you. And Larabe will check his option, and these two will see a flop for the minimum. Queen-6 against ace-5. And there is a 6, couple of diamonds in there. A pair of 6s for Larabe is best. Van Hoof reaching for chips.
1.4.
You heard the dealer.
So, you know, he has an interesting hand. He has a hand where, you know, there's a very reasonable chance he has the best hand. He's got an ace in his hand. It's very hard to flop a pair. We all know that. If he's going to check call, he might as well bet. He also has some great cards on the turn. He could pick up a straight draw. He could pick up a flush draw. An ace would be a great card.
And there's one of the great cards on the turn for him. Up and down straight draw now for Van Hoof.
So with a hand like that, it's much better to bet versus check call in most spots.
The bet gives you a better chance to
Well, you know, just in general, if you're betting, you're on offense. If you're calling, you're on defense. And so if you're going to call anyway, why not be the aggressor?
Van Hof has the action, out of position. He checks.
So obviously he doesn't love that he got called on the flop. He knows that Larabe probably has a pair, and you know, he would love to take a free card here. I mean, Larabe likes to check sets on the river. I'm surprised to see him bet second pair here.
2 diamonds, 2 hearts on that board. As you mentioned, the straight draws out there and is in play for Van Hof.
Seems like he should bet. He knows that.
Yeah, I mean, his opponent
doesn't
showed,
have a king.
Yeah, his opponent showed weakness. He checked to him. You know, he just took a stab at the flop. Is kind of what it looks like. If I'm sitting there with Queen 6, I have no idea what my opponent has. But given the way the action's gone, you know, I'd probably fire. But look, Van Hof has been playing so good and so strong that he doesn't want to get check raised, and Van Hof is definitely capable of that. So he's a little weary going in, you know, making a bet here. But I think he knows it's the right play.
1.7.
$1.7 million from Larabe with the best hand. But certainly he has to be very cautious in this situation.
I think we'll probably see a call from Van Hof. You know, he's got potential to pick up a lot more money on the river if he makes it. But again, nobody likes to call a draw out of position. It's kind of gross. But his ace high might be the best hand, although it's unlikely. The only hand where his ace high is really the best hand is if Larabe had just a flush draw.
6.7.
Ranked to 6.7.
Now, this is the problem with betting here with Larabe's hand. But when you make the bet, you have to be prepared to call if you think your hand is good. Obviously, it's easy for us because we can see that his hand is good. But, you know, what is Van Hof check raising here with on the turn? Did he really make a straight? You know, did he lead with 5-7 and check raise me here on the turn? I mean, he's not doing this with just a king. He can never do this with king jack or king queen or ace king. You know, maybe a hand like king 6. But even with hands like 3-4 and 3-6, it's more likely that he check calls out of position. So, you know, some question marks would start going off in my head here.
Larabe's one of you doing it to me again. I mean, because these two tangled in the.
Van Hof is really saying I have 5-7. So does Larabe have the courage to hang on here? Is the question. That's really what it comes down to.
He's got the knowledge that Jorrit bluffed him earlier.
Exactly, and you know he's thinking, can he possibly do it again? But you know his range of hands that he actually has are so small that, you know, even if I don't see his cards, I think I would call. But
Van Hof gets Larabe once again.
By the way, if you're not prepared to call a check raise with that hand, you can't bet it on the turn.
Jorrit Van Hof showing he's got the heart, taking the rest of the table to task. 8-handed still at the Penn and Teller Theater. Come on back. More action coming your way. Back in Las Vegas in the 2014 World Series of Poker main event final table telecast presented by Gentleman Jack. 8-handed, Mark Newhouse, the first player knocked off by that man Will Taunting, who was our chip leader. Now this man is back in the chip lead. Jorrit Van Hof with almost 55 million. Billy Pappas, our foosball champion, is the short stack at the table. Van Hof has been showing that he knows how to run a bluff at just the right time. The crowd inside the Penn and Teller Theater has been urging their men on. Bruno Politano and his Brazilian group, we expected to be a little noisier, but they are starting to get a little antsy for something to happen. Van Hof, once again, the chip leader. We had a former world champ tweet about the action. Greg Merson, champion from a couple of years ago. Love watching Jacobson play. He has such a boss presence live. And that's the only time you're going to hear me say that word, boss presence live. But he's right. Yeah, Jacobson is a strong player, and he just has not been able to spread his wings quite yet.
I agree with Merson. Jacobson definitely has a very strong presence. Not even just here, but in all the other tournaments I ever played with him. You definitely know he's at the table, and he's also one of the only players that is really focused on the hands that he's not involved in, and that takes a lot of patience and focus and determination. So kudos to the European Jason Kuhn.
He's quit working out. He used to work out till he passed out, and I think Jason may still do that, but Martin has gone more toward the healthful food regimen than the weightlifting regimen. Pulled it around to Jorrit van Hoof, our Dutch chip leader, on the button, and he's going to raise it up to 1.3 million. The blinds right now, as mentioned, 300, 600,000 each player. Puts in a 75,000 chip ante, and that builds a nice pot pre-flop, and Van Hoof will take that uncontested.
Van Hoof, very fond of yoga and meditation. His yoga teacher became his girlfriend. That's the oldest scam in the book. But he got away with it. Actually, a lot of both. He likes yoga and meditation. Larabi is into meditation. And Martin Jacobson is into yoga and meditation. So the Europeans, that's the right route to go.
Yoga is, without a doubt, the greatest invention of body movements.
Half the time I look at you, I think you're in a yoga position too when you're in here working.
I mean, it's great. You just feel great afterwards.
I feel great for some reason after playing pinball. And I know do the same thing that yoga does.
You're in the same contortions the whole time.
Have you ever done yoga?
No.
Chad? Probably not, right?
No, I did a Bikram yoga for a TV thing, and they didn't even put the temperature up as high as they should have because they thought I'd die, and I nearly died at whatever they were doing it for. And I did it for 20 minutes, and I just wanted to just walk out of here and just walk through a car wash after I was done.
Oh, yeah, you'll never sweat more. I mean, yoga is amazing. Your body reacts to that, and it really tests a lot of different aspects of your being. And Van Hoof with the raise once again. And it doesn't take a lot of those raise and take it hands to add to your stack quite nominally.
It's 1.5 million chips every 8 hands. So every orbit is 1.5 million. You know, that is really important for Pappas and Politano.
Yeah, Pappas, the clock really ticking on him now. He's down to 13 big blinds. Politano down to 15 big blinds.
And there you see your point right here. Last 3 hands for Jorrit, and what it meant to his chip stack. He's picked up 7 million chips in the last 3 hands. And now he sits with almost 58 million chips. Will Tonking with almost 52 million, and then in third place is Felix Stevenson with just over 20 million. So quite a gap, over 30 million between second and third. Pappas, the short stack, folds, and he just looks defeated right now. Does the foosball king. Came in with such high hopes, and right now he's looking for pocket pair, a couple of paint cards,
anything to get it in.
Ace.
Just any kind of a good spot to get it in.
Yeah. Stevenson with the raise, queen 10. And Tonking has learned that you cannot rest on your laurels after the knockout of Mark Newhouse. And what a call it was on the river in that spot. And, you know, he was the man of the hour. And since then, poker's like, what have you done for me lately? You know, he's back into second place, and he's one of the crowd. And so you do not stand out fully from the crowd until you hold that bracelet up in the air. Tonking still best with the pocket trays after that flop. A couple of 7s and a king.
Check.
Funny, it's the best hand, and you know it. There's a reasonable chance it's the best hand, but it's still kind of gross. You know, king 7-7 is not the greatest flop, but you probably have the best hand, and you know you probably have the best hand. It is hard to make a pair.
They both check. Turn card, another 7. Full house for Tonkin. pocket pair.
Tonking showed some weakness on the flop by checking back. Stevenson showed some weakness by checking. So I think if I'm Stevenson and my opponent checked back the flop, I'm probably going to lead here on the turn and just kind of pray. There's 4.2 million out there. I could just bet 1.2 and see what it does.
1.75.
Same thought.
Well, Tonking now has a boat. I mean, the only hand that really beats him is a king, you know, or maybe an overpair. Obviously, it doesn't put Stevenson on a 7. I think that he has to size him up here just to see what he does on the river. He's got position. He's got a boat. His opponent showed some weakness on the flop. You know, you got to take one off.
It is a call from Tonking, praying that Stevenson will not hit his card on the river. Queen or 10 will save Tonking, will save Stevenson. 4 of diamonds.
So now this is where the power of position really comes into play, because if Stevenson had, you know, a pair of 8s, he doesn't really want to bet too big here on the river, given that he just got called on the turn. So really, the only thing he could really bet, you know, depending on the size of his bet, if he makes a big bet here, the only hand he's really representing is king or bigger, kings or aces.
Check, check, 2 checks.
Check, check, and so Tonking will take that with the pocket pair and the 3 7s on board. And to see even what seemed to be a nondescript hand built a pot of almost 8 million. And that's a positive for Tonking, and certainly Stevenson hates to give that up. You know, 118 days since we got down to our final 9. And these players all dealt with that break in many different ways. As we mentioned, Mark Newhouse didn't play any poker. Stevenson didn't play any poker. Will Tonking talk to us about the long layoff and what these November Niners had to go through?
3 months have been long, and you know, a lot of time spent waiting to get to today, now, this week, and you know, it dragged out a lot longer than I thought it would, but it gave me some time to prepare and you know, hopefully go into this okay.
To prep for the November 9, Will got together with his 3 smartest, closest poker friends, all high-stakes cash players, and one of them, his closest poker friend from a long time ago, Matt Deal, and he just pretty much huddled up with them. And they had a bunch of conversations, went over to the table, did no simulations, but he just went with his high cash game guys to give him some advice.
A raise from Von Hof, who seems to have found his legs here at this final table. He was, I wouldn't say a spectator, but he was cautious in what he was doing in a lot of hands, and then he started to bluff a little bit. He was starting to win some hands. He's starting to raise pre-flop, pick up chips, and you know, these guys have to be very careful what Von Hof is up to. And he can start to run over this table very easily, and pocket 7s will help him do that as he builds his stack towards 60 million as we remain 8-handed. But we don't think it's going to stay 8-handed very long, with the blinds getting so big and some of the stacks getting very short. It's the Dutchman in the lead just as he started this final table. More from the Rio in just a moment. Our World Series of Poker Main Event Final Table telecast is presented by Gentleman Jack. Hope you're enjoying our Cards Up coverage. Just on a 30-minute delay. Chip leader right now, Dutchman Jorrit Von Hof. He started in the chip lead. He is back there, and he's looking very confident. And, you know, we had a Dutchman at the final table last year, Michiel Brummelhuis. He was the first player to make the final table from the Netherlands, and now they go back-to-back. And, of course, the speed skating team is second to none. And the World Cup team very strong, defeating Brazil, and that gave them 3rd place. Of course, Jorrit could become the first Dutch main event champion. If he wins, they're going to paint the world orange, Norman.
Orange is a good color.
Tuesday night, we will crown our main event champion. The action begins at 9 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. $10 million to the winner. And I've covered several international events, and the Dutchmen, they do show their colors. They bring the orange, whether it's a Tour de France or the soccer or to the speed skating, anywhere. And you always know, and they're wearing orange pretty much from tip to toe wherever they go. And even in the poker coverage, you see reporters from the Netherlands, and they're wearing orange covering all the Dutch players. So they're enjoying that as well. Sindelar opens 1.3 million with ace-6.
That classic Jacobson tank here.
Right. And there he's all again. All in once again with pocket nines again, Jacobson.
All in. We raise all in.
I've been watching that move all night.
I didn't hear.
Billy Pappas, the short stack here.
It's interesting. He's done this about 5 or 6 times, and every single time he's had the hand. But, you know, and not one time has he got called. It just goes to show you how powerful coming over the top all in is to an opener.
And they know who Jacobson is, too.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
they know he's a tournament specialist.
Now, this is the Hollywood. Sindelar is never going to call with ace-6 offsuit, especially given that he knows Jacobson hasn't been out of line every time he's come over the top.
This is for most of Sindelar's chips, so you're right. It's a quick card.
And Jacobson now moves into 4th place past Sindelar, though. Jacobson, Sindelar, and Stevenson all in the 17 million chip range now. And, you know, we talked about this guy getting chips. He doesn't have a lot, but he has more than most now at this table.
It's funny. That's the only play he's really done tonight, has been the 3-bet over the top, either all in or raise. Earlier he did it with 10 deuce of hearts.
Born in Stockholm, grew up outside on an island, and now lives in London. And people recognize him in Europe as one of the best players around, Norman.
Yeah, and he's had a lot of success at the World Series, as we've mentioned. This is his 5th World Series final table. Though in his first main event in 2008, he busted on the third hand, day 1. He was gone. This year, though, if you can believe this, he did not have a losing level until day 5. He chipped up 22 straight 2-hour levels, which doesn't seem possible to me.
He came out of the gate firing as a poker pro. His first recorded cash was for $248,000 6 years ago, 3rd place at an EPT event in Budapest. And so he has been on a nice run for a long time. He's come close to a big win, but has yet to close the deal, and he feels that everything he has done in poker is pointing towards this moment. And so he is going to do everything he can to be the one holding that bracelet when all the dust has settled. Van Hoof with another raise with King Queen, and he will take it once again uncontested.
Again?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, tell me again what you said.
And there hasn't been a lot of cheering because it hasn't been a lot of electric moments, though he's not devoid of them so far, but he's grinding it out. He's doing workman-like business there with the raise pre-flop and build the stack $2 million at a time.
1.5 million every single time.
And that adds up.
He's in a really good position right now. He's the chip leader, but not just the chip leader. Nobody wants to play a pot with him. You know, and when people are scared to play a pot with you, you can really capitalize on that. It's a really good image to have.
And it's not just that physically they're not, I mean, they're obviously folding, but you get, I don't know, you get a sense that they don't want to play as well. I mean, not only they're folding, but you get a sense that it's more than just the fold. It's just like, no way.
Listen, he has put a little bit of fear into everybody at that table. There is absolutely no denying that. And that's exactly what you want to do as a poker player.
Now let's see if the dealer cooperates with Uret. I see now is over 60 million. Hand number 93 of this final table, Sindelar. We'll raise it to 1.5 million. Politano making quicker decisions now. Pappas has only one decision to make. And now Stevenson in 6th place on the leaderboard. He started with the 2nd biggest stack of almost 33 million. And he's lost a little more than half of that stack.
These are 3-betting chips. I mean, he doesn't usually cut out his chips and then not do what, you know, it looks like he's going to do. So He's always going to raise here.
Re-raised to $4 million from Stevenson. Von Hof folds. Stevenson with ace-king, and he will take it.
You know, nobody has got 3-bet more often than Sindelar, I think. I feel like every time he opens, someone comes over the top and poor guy has to fold. You know, it's kind of a brutal feeling. He's been getting hammered quite a bit. Now he jumps to the 3rd lowest stack.
And it's amazing how quickly, you know, the stacks do shift around. I mean, you look at 3rd through 8th, and the range is only from 19 million to 6 million. And then the top 2 are Von Hof and Tonking at 59 and 56 million respectively. And they right now are the 2 front runners for that World Series of Poker bracelet, holding 58% of the chips in play. So the button is on Stevenson. Folded to Bruno Politano. And this short stack has not been able to put any pressure on this short stack. And Billy Pappas now moves all in with a couple of face cards. King Jack, not optimal, but he's hoping to at least get through everyone else, and he will.
Good for Billy. I was talking to one of his close friends, Jack Kelly, who was here today. He says Billy's just an absolute anomaly in everything he does, and when he puts his mind to something, he usually can do it. It's been foosball, poker, hacky sack, video games. He says Billy has incredible hand-eye coordination in everything he does.
Well, maybe taking a page out of Jacobson's book, and Jacobson, as we mentioned, pretty much down to one move and one move only. I'm all in, I'm all in, I'm all in. And they've gotten through, of course, each time as one of the short stacks. And right now, Martin Jacobson in 5th place, not where he wants to be as far as his chip count is concerned, 17.1 million. But, you know, he has been a short stack at this table. He is no longer. See, just about an hour, 28 minutes left in this level.
When he goes all in, it's that same exact move. It's like, it seems like we're just running the same thing on a loop.
And Bruno Politano is all in for just about 8 million with ace jack. Tonking will give up his big blind, and Politano's shove will get through, and he will be the one stacking a few chips as he and Pappas now battle it out for not being the short stack at this final table. But you can see the position they are in, and if you are a novice to the game, you just are seeing a physical representation of what that big ball does to you. The ball being the blinds, how they just come around so often and they just crush your stack every time you have to put chips into the pot. And when you don't play a hand, your chips get melted away by having to pay that ante, having to pay the small and big blinds going by, and it's very expensive, and things can disappear quite quickly. So you're forced to make a move. It won't often be the hand that you wanted to go all in with, but sometimes your options are so limited. And it's managing those expectations and those realities that make a good poker player. Now folded to Von Hof.
Raise to 1.3.
Von Hof just raises, then looks around the table and says, "You want a piece of me? Do you want a piece of me?"
And nobody does.
Pocket pair.
Nobody wants to play a pot with him, A, and B, everybody wants to move up spots. You know, I can't believe Sindelar just folded 5-4 suited in the big blind. I mean, I guess given that he is short stack and there are 2 shorter stacks, it does make sense. I just can't fold. I just got to see a flop with that hand. You know, you never know. You never know.
You want to see flops. You live to see flops.
I do love to see flops, but you know that hand can get you in trouble if you flop middle pair or something like that. It's kind of hard to get away from. And, you know, you happen to be against the big chip stack out of position, so I totally get it. I just emotionally have to have a peak. You know, I'm a peak kind of guy.
Larabe has the button in his hand.
Billy just looks frustrated and tired every time he looks down at his hole cards and doesn't see anything that he can play.
It's like he's playing a little marble as the foosball, and he can't quite get the guys to hit the ball as it just keeps rolling underneath. He can do nothing about it. Sindelar folds. Jacobson will get the walk in the big blind.
I mean, Tonkin has to consider raising with any two cards there. He's got two of the shorter stacks on his left. You know, he has all the chips. You know, I didn't see his cards, but if it was even remotely marginal, I would have definitely raised it.
So Jacobson now up to almost 18 million. Culinary school was very good for him. He was actually in line for a nice job at a restaurant that had, I think, 3 stars, the Michelin stars, and then the job fell through, and he went back to poker, and look where he's come, you know, with millions in recorded cashes.
And he says he's happier in poker. He prefers it to the cooking life. He says that the cooking life was actually physically and mentally tougher, more of a grind.
Is that right?
Than playing poker. Very, very long hours, a lot of pressure.
Well, you've seen those cooking shows. They yell a lot.
They yell a lot, and like every 12 minutes you got to peel another onion.
Everybody's got a knife. Nobody's got a knife at the poker table. They will find different ways to carve you up at the poker table. Larabe. $1.2 million from Andoni Larabe from Spain, 10-8 of clubs.
Andoni has never had a job.
He's 22.
He's okay. Don't you have jobs when you're a teenager?
I had a job when I was 16.
You know? Thank you.
Larabe's raise will get through Politano as the big blind, and it will be Larabe counting the stacks. Let's go down to Kara Scott. She's got a report on how the rails are helping their players.
With such a high-pressure situation, it makes sense that the players would bring with them a support crew of people so that they can just really focus on what's happening at the table. Now, these things can be anything from the very simple, maybe reminding a player to breathe or to eat on the breaks, but they could also be a little bit more practical. Now, as you know, we are airing this final table as live. That means we're on a 30-minute delay. This is how we can show you what the hole cards are. So all of the players at the table will have someone here in the audience watching as it airs and taking note of what the cards are in key hands, because in poker it is crucial to know what your opponents are doing in certain spots. Now, this is why you see a big name pro like Scott Seaver in the audience with his tablet and a Wi-Fi connection helping out.
Oh, please. He's helping out Felix Stevenson, but what Felix doesn't know is that Scott was listening to Monday Night Football on his headset. That is no help to Felix.
When you got Scott Seaver in your corner, you're doing okay. Von Hof now with the raise, ace deuce, 1.3 million under the gun, +1, talking with pocket jacks one more time. And he just calls with the jacks. Interesting to see these players with the big pocket pair we've seen call more often than not.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the pay jumps have a lot to do with the way they're playing their bigger pairs. They don't want to flip for a, you know, for given what's at risk. They don't want to flip for their whole stack. You're talking about millions and millions of dollars of difference here.
And with pocket pair, Sindelar with the re-raise to $3.5 million, and now Jacobson, given this some thought, he's looking at the chip stacks on the leaderboard behind him. And it's Sindelar who has a smaller stack than Jacobson, so maybe Martin taking that into consideration. But it's talking with a monster stack for the jacks.
So, I mean, there's almost no hand that Jacobson can call here with. Maybe aces, but even then he's probably going to put in a small raise. If he moves, Tonking's decision becomes a lot easier to fold. I mean, I don't think he's ever folding this if it gets back around to him and everybody folds. I think he's probably going to put Sindelar all in given his stack size. But if Jacobson gets involved in this pot, that really puts a little bit of pressure on Tonking. In fact, I think he'll probably be likely to fold it.
Considering the hand he played against Newhouse?
Yes. If Jacobson enters the pot, Tonking will be done with the hand. Okay, now that he's out,
point.
It's going to get all the way back around to Tonking. Von Hof will fold. and Tonking will probably shove.
No folds. So Tonking now, after Sindelar 3-bet him with the pocket sixes.
And given what's, you know, the amount of chips that he has in there, he put 3.5 of his 14 million in the pot. I don't think he can get away from this. I think this is just a spot where that's it. Sayonara.
There it is. Tonking re-raises Sindelar all in, and you saw Sindelar's face.
I think he can get away from it, Antonio.
I don't think so. He's just got so much money out there. There's a very reasonable chance that Tonking flatted with ace-queen or ace-king.
Probably not flipping there.
I would be very impressed if we get a fold here. By the way, there's so much at stake. I mean, I get it, but, oh, man, I mean, the internet wizards do not like folding here, I can tell you that. I don't even like folding.
Well, even though the fold still keeps him in the same position, sixth place, right?
Yeah, I mean, the pay jump is so big.
Well, there is the fold. No showing. Yeah, you will see it in 30 minutes. We are on a 30-minute delay. Hole cards are face up when a player enters the pot, our new viewing format, and Will Tonking now once again the chip leader with over 61 million as he and Von Hofer trading the top spot. Tonking did indeed tell Sindelar it was a good fold. Didn't show him what he had, but said, yeah, that was a good fold. And
that's a lot of discipline there, boys.
Yeah,
a lot
and you're probably
of discipline.
Right. The internet wizards are probably right mathematically on why you call in that spot with that chip stack in this stage, but that one just saved Sindelar's main event.
Right. I mean, yeah, for sure. But also, Tonking's not really getting out of line for, that many chips. He'll take little stabs here, he'll open light here and there, but when he puts 10 million in the pot, he usually has it. So, I mean, I get it. I understand the fold. Can't say that I love it, even though it was right. Long term, I think it's a losing play.
I'll take this. We're not talking long term. We're talking
tonight.
The World Series of Poker main event.
One night.
All right, you win.
2 nights of action. Immortality on the line. Fold it to Politano.
I'm all in.
All in?
You heard him. Queen 10 for the Brazilian.
13 big blinds left.
I call.
And a quick call from Stevenson with pocket sevens. And he will put Politano at risk. And when Politano is all in, he goes through a visiting routine, a little snapping routine.
By the way, he has to be pretty happy about it. He got insta-called with Queen 10. You think you're dead, and all of a sudden you're 50% almost.
So Stevenson with 18 million has Politano at risk, who has 8 million. A nice chance for Felix to separate himself from the middle stacks. Queen 10 against pocket sevens. Queen 10 at risk. All undercards.
Politano needs a queen or a 10 on the Turner River to stick around.
The turn card is a king. One card to go for Bruno Politano. Stevenson trying to get us a step closer to $10 million.
Politano, the first Brazilian to make the main event final table. Perhaps down to his final card. It has to be a queen or a 10.
if you ask so much, it has to come, no?
The river card is the 9 of hearts. Felix Stevenson with the pocket 7 scores our second knockout of the night. Brazilian Bruno Politano is our 8th place finisher. With Bruno, go the hopes of Brazil for a main event champion. He did earn a pay bump to $947,000 as he congratulates his supporting group, who in turn applaud his supreme efforts. All the payouts from this point forward are at least $1.2 million. Bruno Politano was one a lot of people picked to be the best poker ambassador possible this November 9, but Brazil will not have a world champion this year. 7-handed when we come back. The hopes for a Brazilian world champion of no-limit hold'em poker have been dashed as Felix Stevenson knocks out Bruno Politano, much to the dismay of an entire country and most of the crowd here in the Penn and Teller. Bruno is down Boquero right now.
The first ever November 9er from Brazil. Bruno, when we spoke a few days ago, you said that this was 50% you and 50% your rails. So what do you want to say to them?
I'm saying thank you for everybody. It's really important for me, that support. I do my best. I do my best. And my best is my rail. It's my 50%. I'm very happy because I'm enjoying this moment. And it's a great moment of my life. And my rail enjoy it too.
When we met you back in July, you were still saying that you were kind of an amateur at poker, even though you've been playing a very long time. Or now you an amateur or a pro?
Yeah, but I'm thinking the poker is a great part of my life. I'm a professional poker player now, and before this July, I'm a professional poker player. But I divide my life in 2 jobs. But I love poker, and I will play poker and all my life.
Thank you so much. A great representative for poker from Brazil, Bruno Politano, out in 8th.
So now we are down to 7. Politano out with $947,000. Will Tonking and Jurrit von Hof battling for the chip lead. Norman, a nice boost for Stevenson's stack, who one of the more talented players, and that really has got to give him a shot in the arm right now.
Yeah, now we're left on with 7, Antonio Laravi from Spain, 3 Americans, and 3 idiots from Northern Europe. Again, disproving Phil Hellmuth's Northern European theories.
All right, so 7-handed, Antonio. We get a little looser play. You think we're going to see more bluffing at this stage of the game?
Absolutely, especially since we got some short stacks, so it's even going to get looser than it was in the last couple of rounds. Definitely in the last round.
Next payout, $1.2 million. Laravi with a raise to $1.2 million. The blinds right now, as you see on the upper part of the screen, 300, 600,000, a 75,000 chip ante as Bruno Politano goes out on hand number 100. Billy Pappas, he shoved once and got it through. Looking for another opportunity as the short stack with 6.7 million, and Laravi's raise will take it.
Billy continues to grimace every time he tosses his cards into the muck. And he's running out of time to find the right hand. Billy now down to 11 big blinds.
And Billy made no secret of the fact, that he was the only certified amateur at this table. He was a poker dealer, hadn't played a lot of tournaments. This is his first ever World Series cash, and he knew that he was maybe feeling a bit overmatched against this group. Reminder of the 4 chips in play. The oversized red 500,000 chip, the biggest one, down to the green 25K chip.
I give Billy Pappas a lot of credit. Foosball players usually don't make good poker players. Poker dealers usually don't make good poker players. And guys wearing green baseball caps with Yoshi on it usually don't make good poker players.
A lot of strikes against him. But he indeed has made it to the final 7 out of an original field of 6,683 in this year's main event.
And you know, life is weird. Billy and Felix Stevenson still live here in the main event final table. Neither one originally was even going to play the main event this year. It's
right.
amazing. Billy had planned to go to a foosball tournament in Austria. Felix had planned to go to the World Cup in Brazil.
But the turn of events for both of them, and here they are. Stevenson with a raise, folded to him on the button, 8-5. And Von Hof often, we've seen 3-bet in the situation, but he just calls with ace-queen. Larabe in the big blind.
You know, some people at home might be looking at Stevenson thinking, why is he playing 8-5 offsuit? Well, he's on the button, everybody folded to him. There's a lot of money out there, so you have to try and win what's out there. You know, what puts you ahead of the curve is money that you steal. If everybody got the same exact cards over the course of a lifetime, it's what you steal that puts you ahead of your opponents. And so he's risking 1.3 million chips to win 1.5. He's by far getting the right price. There's a reasonable chance that everybody just folds.
So a couple of flush draws, but it's Von Hof with the nut flush draw with the ace of spades.
So you're saying in that position every other time, if he's able to take it down,
yeah, if he wins just
profitable
half,
for him.
yeah, if he wins 50%,
yeah,
it's profitable.
Have a bet of 1 point.
Straight draws for Larabe and Stevenson.
Yeah, Larabe doesn't really want to draw here because some of his outs could give someone else a flush, and also he could be drawing dead. So it's kind of a tough spot with an open-ended straight draw, and Stevenson, you know, he wants no part of this. Oh no, he's got the 8 of spade. I'm sorry. He's got a gut shot straight draw and a flush draw. There's
which
a
is no
chance
good. Yeah.
that he calls here in position here. Yeah.
One time call?
I mean, you know, it's a very reasonable call. You can't just let your opponent kind of take control. I mean, Von Hof just called out of the small blind and is now leading.
No, Stevenson does give it up. And so Von Hof will take that pot of over $6 million and building his arsenal over there.
Nobody wants to play pot with him.
So with 61.5 million chips, he has gone back ahead of Will Tonking as these two have been seesawing at the top. Just little increments, both of them taking the chip lead by just a little bit each time, but they each keep taking chips from the rest of the table. And that is the key point. So Von Hof comfortable in his leader's chair, and he hopes he will be in that spot when we come back tomorrow, 9 o'clock Eastern on ESPN. A main event champion will be crowned. The World Series of Poker bracelet worth itself over $500,000 will be awarded, and $10 million will be given to one of these final 7 players. And Billy Pappas is all in, and he will take it. He shoved with his king-queen.
By the way, Billy says if you have never played foosball and you do play foosball for the first time, he says you will get hooked. Now, I like foosball, but this is what I got to say about that game, Lon. You need a lot of quarters to play foosball. I don't want to carry around that much change.
I was reading about it. I felt it was my duty to learn a little more about foosball. And it's amazing how much there is to the game at that level. I mean, any contest at that level, World Championship level. For one thing, you can't see the ball when they're playing. So it's not really a great TV sport, and Billy freely admits that.
Ball just moves too fast.
You can't, you cannot see
it.
It's
like hockey that way. The puck's too small in hockey for TV, and the ball moves too fast.
But they juggle that ball down there with so many. Oh, but well, it is incredible what they can do.
They're good, huh?
They're very good. And there's a lot of those sticks to play with. So is Stevenson here with the raise to 1.3 million, with the smallest pocket pair. Larabe checking out the scoreboard. Larabe right now in 5th place with just under 18 million. Stevenson sits with over 25 million after the knockout of Politano.
Larabe splits his time between London and Las Vegas. He plays online when he's in the UK, and he plays live here in Las Vegas.
And he got in a little bit of a pickle because of that, Norman, that last time he came through into Las Vegas to play was at the World Series in July. And they noticed he'd come back and forth several times, and Custom says, this is your last trip into Las Vegas for the main event. And then he ended up making the final table and has to come back in Las Vegas, and it was dicey whether or not he was going to get back in the country.
Well, I can't imagine running into a problem like that. If they actually don't let you in, I mean, there's always a chance they don't let you in the country. What are you going to do?
No, he could have played via Skype.
I would definitely sneak into a trunk of a car and try and get over here. There is nothing that's going to stop
Nothing's going to stop you
from getting in here.
Larave with the re-raise with ace-king offsuit to Stevenson's small pocket pair. And actually, him being a November 9er tipped the scales. They were managed to, with a little help, convince the U.S. to let him back in to play this tournament.
It's very kind of U.S. Customs.
Thank you very much for that. So Stevenson and Larave.
I mean, you know, pocket deuces, you got a pair, but it's pretty gross when someone 3-bets you. So this is one of those spots where you could try and flop a set, and win a big pot. But really, you don't, most of the times you're going to miss, and then you're just going to have to give up. So
Larave will take it with the bet and ace-king. But with any pocket pair, I imagine you got to at least give it a nominal try.
Yeah, you have to try.
Right?
Can't hurt to try. Norman Chad's been trying his whole life.
Well, Politano was the short stack coming into this final table. He was just knocked out. You see how the short stacks in recent years have fared, and really the best one of the bunch, Jeremy Osmus, a local player and one of the top players really around, finished 5th, and that's pretty much the best you can hope for, I would imagine.
But the second shortest stack in 2007, Jerry Yang, ended up winning it. He is the last amateur to win this thing. Billy Pappas trying to become the next amateur to win this thing.
Yeah, you can turn the lights down too.
Pappas below 8 million chips. Under the gun, has to fold. And now Von Hof. He doesn't need to be on the button and have it folded to him. He'll get active anywhere, anytime. Now raised to 1.4 million with pocket fours.
So
around to Jacobson to the big blind.
There's another reason I just remembered I missed Jerry Yang. Everyone here pretty much just min-raising, just a little over min-raising. Jerry Yang came here, he got the chips, and he started betting everybody 4x, 5x. It was just unbelievable to watch.
They didn't know what to do.
They didn't know what to do. So I'm tired of this min-raising. Somebody step out from the crowd and beat Jerry Yang here.
Hello. A set of fours for Von Hof. Jacobson luckily comes up empty on that flop and checks.
So this is probably going to be a check call situation. I don't think there's any version of Jacobson raising this, just because he doesn't want to take Von Hof's bluff away from him. He has such a monster hand. It's a totally rainbow board.
Jacobson's.
Oh, I had the hands mixed up. I apologize.
You had it backwards.
Yeah, whoops.
So it was Von Hof with the flop set, and he will take it. Jacobson with the easy fold after he got no part of that flop. And that man right now is our chip leader with almost 64 million chips. Jort Von Hof from the Netherlands, the second straight Netherlands poker player to make the main event final table. He's trying to become the first world champion. I'm Lon McCarron along with Norman Chad, Antonio Esfandiari. We've got Kara Scott, Daniel Negreanu, and Phil Hellmuth covering us on the breaks. And we are seven-handed. Mark Newhouse, the first player knocked off of this final table in stunning fashion by Will Tonking. And then recently it was Bruno Politano being eliminated by Felix Stevenson. Billy Pappas, the foosball king, is a short stack right now.
So if it was 1.5 million shot that somebody could make back-to-back main event final tables the last 2 years in fields of over 6,000, what were the odds of finishing 9th in back-to-back years in fields over 6,000? Is there some other number there?
That would never happen.
You're right. It couldn't happen.
Stevenson raises, and then Von Hof says 3 million with a weaker ace.
It's a tough spot to be in with ace-10 here. You know, you have a pretty good hand, but again, you know, there's a lot of hands that beat you. You're out of position.
Larabe wondering, well, how did I draw this seat? And that's part of the luck in poker people don't talk about is your seat draw. I mean, from the get-go.
I mean, Larabe actually loves his seat just because he has position on the one guy that's playing the most hands, who's the most dangerous at the table.
At least he has the advantage of knowing what Jort's up to, but to be pushed out of so many hands. Sindelar now with the second short stack, 9.2 million.
He suddenly has the look, a tired look of a man.
He says all in. Wow. Yeah, a resigned look. Oh, he good now hand with the pocket jacks. And somebody pointed out to me the pocket jacks is pretty much held up. No more memorial hand for me.
The Lon McCarron memorial hand has been retired for one night.
Right, one night. Stevenson folds.
How much is that? Like 9.
You know, this is pretty close because he only has to call 6 more million to win a pretty massive pot, but he knows he's way behind. Does he want to give up those chips, have them move over to his left?
They'd move to his left. He'd get the chip lead, but he has called.
And Dan Sindelar at risk with the pocket jacks, trying to get them to hold up and double him to 21 million. Jort Von Hof, our current chip leader, with ace tray of hearts.
Really, he's only got 2 outs just because an ace was exposed. Stevenson folded ace-10, so he's got to get pretty lucky to win this pot here. Sindelar is in a really good spot to double up.
Dan Sindelar's crowd calling for the jacks to hold up. And there is an ace and 2 hearts.
Boy, those percentages are going to go so depressing for Dan Sindelar, as you see. 4%
and you
now.
Heard the wind go out of the sails as Sindelar saw the ace and the 2 hearts, just icing on Van Hof's cake.
Jack of hearts no good for Sindelar. Now only 1 card in the deck will keep him alive.
It is a tray, and ace is up now for Von Hof, but it still comes down to the jack of spades for Dan Sindelar. Here is the river card. He needed the jack. It was the queen of spades instead. Jort Von Hof scores the knockout. He risked the call with such a big stack, and it paid off. Dan Sindelar, our 7th place finisher here at the main event, earns over 1.2 million, while Von Hof vaults to over 75 million.
Nothing to be ashamed of here for Dan Sindelar. Pretty solid. Didn't have a lot of big hands.
What are we going to do?
And we'll go home with 7th place money.
Von Hof, known as the cleaner, cleans out Dan Sindelar. He now, with 75 million chips, has started to pull away even from Will Tonking. We are 6-handed. Dan Sindelar risked his entire stack with pocket jacks, but the ace tray came through for Von Hof.